The Gettysburg Address. The Battle of Gettysburg was a huge turning point in the Civil War. This short but brutal battle resulted in 51,000 casualties. Robert E. Lee, the general of the Confederacy, marched his troops into Union territory after the Confederate victory in the Battle of Chancellorsville. His troops marched into Pennsylvania with the belief that a victory in Union territory would erode the Union's motivation to continue battling. However, on the last day of this three-day battle, the Union was able to defeat the Confederacy in an event known as Pickett's Charge. 4.5 months after this battle, on November 19, 1863, President Lincoln traveled to Gettysburg to give a speech at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery. He wanted to give a discourse on how our founding fathers sought for freedom and equality for all, and how we should honor those who died in the Battle of Gettysburg in order to preserve these ideals. His lecture was so significant, and each line had a deep meaning. Lincoln did not believe that people would remember his speech, but it highlighted the foundation of our nation, what it was based on, and how we should venerate those who fight to protect these values. Lincoln opens his lecture by stating that in 1776, our fathers created a nation based on liberty and equality. Here, Lincoln is questioning whether our nation based on these principles can endure. The Civil War is testing the country's endurance. This war, testing our endurance, contained a battle that occurred in Gettysburg, and Lincoln and the crowds are gathered at that battlefield. At this part, Lincoln tells the audience why they are gathered at Gettysburg. They are congregated to honor those who lost their lives to preserve the nation. The President says that it is appropriate and respectable that they honor the soldiers. Lincoln asserts that we cannot take credit for these soldiers' work. The soldiers have earned all the credit much more than we have. This statement is ironic because Lincoln believed that no one would remember his speech. Before the Gettysburg Address was delivered, a man named Edward Everett delivered a 2-hour speech stressing the significance of the Battle of Gettysburg. While listening to it, Lincoln thought this discourse would be highly revered and his would be forgotten. He mentioned in his address that no one would remember what he said, but everyone would keep in mind what the soldiers did during the battle. Since we cannot take credit for the soldiers' work, Lincoln is stating that the living should be here to dedicate themselves to the incomplete labor of the soldiers. Although the Battle of Gettysburg was a Union victory, many of the Union soldiers were killed, therefore they could not win the entire war. Lincoln is telling the population that they should finish the work the deceased soldiers intended to complete. Lincoln mentions that the populace should also be dedicated to the challenge that lied ahead, that we honor and admire those who died in order to preserve our nation. This last statement summarizes why everyone is gathered at this assembly. Lincoln tells the crowd that the soldiers who died in battle passed away for a special reason. They died in order to give everyone the right to freedom and to preserve the foundation of our country, a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. The speech Lincoln believed would have been forgotten, ironically had a huge impact and is the most remembered and revered speech in all of American history. In the era the speech was given, Long discourses that lasted hours were as important as rock concerts currently are now. However, Lincoln only delivered a 2-minute speech. This lecture is widely renowned because Lincoln ingeniously made it short and wrote it in such a strong manner that every word was packed. The speech was so concise, yet extremely pithy. The impact it had on the nation was the succinctness of the speech. The audience was shocked about how a short discourse could be full of depth and meaning, more meaningful than the 2-hour speech recited before the address. Not only was it short and significant, but it was understandable too. The sentences were easy to comprehend. Because the speech contained 3 components of being concise, meaningful, and understandable, it is recognized worldwide and has gone down to be one of the most vital addresses in history.